of our turning point, let's say family, but I want you guys all to see the Medal of Freedom and be able to look at it in the back of it. You guys are all part of the legacy. And on the back, it's the first and last time I'll put a cross on it. Yeah, you just I literally will say, here's the all of these. Like I don't care. Everyone can have their own and see. I know. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
It started quietly, with a moment that seemed simple, almost forgettable. A hall filled with soft music, flashes from cameras, and polite applause. On stage stood Erika Kirk, accepting a medal, her expression calm and composed. At first glance, it was an ordinary public appearance, the kind of event that happens every day in front of the media. She smiled, nodded to the audience, thanked the organizers. Her tone was warm, practiced, but there was something in her eyes, something that didn't quite fit the moment.
It wasn't sadness exactly.
It wasn't fear either. It was something harder to define, like a person wearing strength as a mask. The video was short, barely a minute long, but by evening, it was everywhere. People began slowing it down frame by frame. Some noticed the way she took a deep breath before speaking. Others pointed out the way her hands trembled ever so slightly as she held the microphone. Within hours, social media was full of theories. Comments flooded in. She looks nervous. She's holding back tears. No, she's just being professional. And soon, what began as a quiet ceremony turned into a national talking point. Psychologists, journalists, and even body language experts joined the debate. They analyzed her gestures, her breathing, her pauses. Every little detail was broken apart and discussed as if the truth about her life could be found in the space between two words. But what people couldn't see from that clip was the story behind her stillness. The pressure of being in the public eye, the weight of expectations, the exhaustion of always appearing perfect. Maybe it wasn't mystery at all. Maybe it was just a woman trying to hold herself together while the world watched. Still, the video kept spreading. Within days, it became one of the most replayed clips online. News anchors replayed it in slow motion. Commentators dissected every moment. And while everyone was talking about what they thought they saw, one truth remained. No one really knew what was going on in her heart at that moment. It was just a few minutes on stage, but those few minutes changed how millions saw her forever. And that's where this story begins.
Necessarily think they know what's going on yet. There's a lot of weird shit going on with this.
I know.
First of all, there was that one guy who was the decoy. All right, so you got this guy who's an older guy who starts yelling out. Didn't he take his pants down? He took his pants down. This guy was at 9/11. He was at the Boston bombings.
All the hits.
He called in a fake bomb at another place. And then he did this at this thing. So somehow or another, this guy has the state of mind that the moment someone gets shot, he yells out and says, I did it, and takes his pants down or something like that.
And a guy wrote, this guy got what he deserved. No, he didn't. He had open debates. That takes courage. So if you didn't agree with them, you could come and speak. What's wrong with that?
Listen to what
Joe Rogan has been calling out a lot of inconsistencies in this case, and one of the things he focuses on is the suspect situation at the scene. There's footage of an older man who arrived and behaved extremely erratically, shouting, drawing attention, and acting in a way that seemed designed to distract. Commentators have pointed out that this same individual has, in various reports, been linked to other high-profile incidents in the past, which raises immediate questions about coincidence versus pattern. Then, almost immediately after the event, authorities announced unrelated charges against him. Rogan's point: that sequence conveniently prevents a full, timely interview with someone who was present when it mattered. He asks the obvious question, what are the odds one person shows up at multiple
Our turning point, let's say family, but I want you guys all to see the Medal of Freedom and be able to look at it in the back of it. You guys are all part of the legacy. He came in back. It's the first time I came up with a box.
Now, Joe Rogan isn't someone who just takes stories at face value, especially when they don't add up. He starts breaking down why this whole situation sounds completely off. He explains that the technical details alone make no sense. To take apart and reassemble a rifle like that, you'd need special tools, precision instruments, experience, and a lot of time. Even for someone trained, it wouldn't be easy. Then there's the logistics. How did this kid even get onto the roof? No security cameras? No drone surveillance? A clear line of sight to the target, and somehow no one noticed? Joe's reaction is pretty direct. None of this makes sense. Something's not right here. And when you really listen to his breakdown, it starts to feel like he has a point. The story seems too messy, too inconsistent, almost like it was designed to confuse everyone. Joe even suggests that when you want the public to stop trusting the system, you fill the story with contradictions. You throw in bizarre details that lead nowhere. A random suspect in the woods, an old man doing something strange at the scene, a teenager with a suspicious backstory. Everything feels staged, chaotic, maybe even intentional. But while everyone's focused on the wild theories about what actually happened, something else quietly starts drawing attention. Charlie Kirk's widow, Erika. Now imagine this, your spouse has just been killed, right in front of a crowd. You'd expect someone in that position to be heartbroken, barely functioning. But just days after the tragedy, Erika Kirk appeared on camera at Turning Point USA headquarters. And that's where things took another unexpected turn, because what people saw in that footage started a whole new wave of questions.
Who's not military trained. This guy, first of all, how did he get to the roof? How come nobody was looking? How come nobody was like, there's a direct line of sight between where he's sitting and those roofs? You guys didn't check? You don't have a drone? Like, that's insane. So he's on the roof, he shoots, he jumps from the roof. He jumps down 14 feet.
Yeah, we saw didn't they have video of him jump? Somebody had a cell phone video of him jumping.
There's
down,
a video
right?
of him jumping. So this guy, whoever it is, jumps off of the roof and lands, whether or not he's even the guy who shot him. Maybe he thought he was going to shoot him. Maybe he's a patsy. Maybe he did it.
I feel like he's a plant. Did you see the video? Did you see the person doing the investigating on his mom's Facebook?
No.
You haven't seen this? Have you seen that, Jamie? Some dude online.
His mom's got a weird Facebook.
It's very trippy. It doesn't make any sense.
Look at her face. She's smiling. Not a faint, nervous smile. A real, genuine one. She's holding up Charlie's Medal of Freedom, showing it proudly to the team, telling them they're all part of his legacy. She seems energized, almost cheerful. Now, sure, everyone processes grief differently. Maybe she's trying to stay strong, to keep things positive in the middle of heartbreak. Maybe she's still in shock. But when you compare her reaction to how most people behave just days after losing a loved one, it feels unusual. One comment on that video went viral. It said, "Everyone grieves differently, but no one grieves like her." And honestly, that one line captured what thousands of people were already thinking. But here's the twist. That wasn't the only footage. There was more. And when people started piecing everything together, the overall picture started to look strange. Another clip surfaced, showing Erika arriving at an event. In this one, she appears emotional, teary-eyed, distraught, the picture of grief. But when people compared that video to the earlier footage, they noticed inconsistencies. Some claimed it looked staged, that her reactions didn't match the timeline or the emotions you'd expect. And just like that, the internet went into overdrive.
Love you, Erika. Charlie, 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 Charlie. Love you, Erika. Charlie, Charlie.
Watch her face closely. Notice her body language. Does this look like real grief? Or does it look like someone trying to appear heartbroken? That question lit up the internet. Within hours, the comment section exploded, people calling it bad acting, forced emotion, even comparing her expressions to scenes from movies where actors fake cry for the camera. Now, no one wants to sound harsh here. Grief is complicated. People handle loss in their own ways. But still, when you watch this footage, something feels off. You can't quite explain it, but your gut whispers that something doesn't add up. Of course, maybe that's unfair. Maybe everyone's just reading too much into it. Maybe this is how Erika processes grief. So let's take a step back and look at what genuine grief often looks like in the public eye. Think back to when Kobe Bryant passed away. His wife, Vanessa Bryant, didn't rush into the spotlight. She stayed quiet, away from cameras, grieving both her husband and her daughter after that tragic helicopter crash. And when she finally did appear publicly, you could see it. The pain was real. The emotion was raw and unfiltered. That kind of heartbreak doesn't need to be explained. It radiates from someone who's truly lost everything.
So many amazing things down the pipeline.
Fail and do test.
I am so excited.
I miss you, all of you, every day. I love you.
Now look at this comparison. On one side, you have Vanessa Bryant, holding back tears, her grief written all over her face. On the other, you have Erika Kirk, smiling, talking about amazing things ahead and how excited she is for what's coming next. The contrast is striking. That's when the internet coined a new phrase for her, the happy widow. And yes, that sounds harsh. But when you watch the clip side by side, it's easy to understand why so many people found it unsettling. Because here's the thing, grief doesn't follow a script. Everyone copes differently. But there's a difference between processing loss in your own way and showing no visible sign of loss at all. That's what people couldn't wrap their heads around. It wasn't just that Erika seemed composed. It's that she seemed happy, energized, almost eager to move forward. And that brings us to the part that truly made everyone stop and stare. After Charlie's passing, someone had to step in to lead Turning Point USA. That someone was Erika. Now, stepping into your late spouse's role, that's a huge responsibility. It's emotional, it's heavy, and most people would approach it with quiet caution or even reluctance. But that's not how Erika handled it.
She seems really upbeat, really happy, only days after her husband was assassinated. That looks like smiles. That looks like laughing and happiness and joy. So many people noticed this. Erika was laughing right after her husband was assassinated. Now, I'm not saying she's celebrating. I'm saying it's weird.
Listen closely to her tone in this clip. She's talking about stepping in to host the show, about carrying on Charlie's legacy, but there's no sadness in her voice. No hesitation. Instead, she sounds excited. She even says it herself. I'm excited. It's weird to say excited. And honestly, she's right. It is strange to sound enthusiastic about taking over after such a heartbreaking loss. She keeps going, talking about how we're so blessed, how there's more work than we could ever dream of, and how there are amazing things coming down the pipeline. But as she's saying all this, her tone isn't that of someone grieving. It's upbeat, energetic, almost celebratory. Like she's announcing a new project, not mourning her husband's death. It didn't take long for TikTok to notice. Clips of her interviews started circulating everywhere. People slowed them down, analyzed her expressions, picked apart every phrase and gesture. And the general reaction was the same. This doesn't look like grief. It looks like someone who just got a promotion. But then, things took an even stranger turn.
I'm gonna say it, Erika Kirk's behavior is unsettling as fuck. It's not conveying real grief, it's conveying performance. It's giving uncanny valley. Like, this woman came out on stage to pyrotechnics, timing her body language and her crying to the music. Then she gives a speech that comes off as more of a piece of performance.
In another clip, Erika talks about using Charlie's social media accounts, keeping his voice alive by posting on his behalf. On the surface, that sounds heartfelt. Preserving a public figure's work, sharing memories, keeping a legacy visible. But online, context matters. People started asking, is posting as someone after they're gone a meaningful tribute, or does it feel a little off, maybe even tone deaf? That question pushed things past mere curiosity and into something more serious. Suspicion was starting to solidify into discussion, but suspicion alone isn't evidence. If this was going to go anywhere, it needed an expert eye. Enter Dr. G, a professional body language analyst brought in to watch hours of footage, frame by frame. She didn't come with headlines or hot takes. She came with methodology. She examined facial microexpressions, timing of gestures, vocal cadence, and how emotion, or the lack of it, played across different clips. What she reported wasn't a verdict, it was observations. In some moments, she noted cues that typically line up with high arousal and stress. In others, she pointed out gestures and expressions that can appear rehearsed or controlled. Put together, Dr. G said, the pattern was unusual enough to warrant attention, not as proof of anything sinister, but as a reason why so many viewers felt unsettled when they watched these clips back to back. And when an expert frames it that way, the conversation changes. It stops being just snarky comments and turns into a debate about authenticity, public performance, and how we interpret grief through screens. That's where the story really deepened. People were no longer just deciding whether they liked or disliked Erika. They were asking what this all means for how public figures process loss, and how the public should respond when their reactions don't fit expectations.
Excited. It's weird to say excited, but it's also very surreal to say it because I know that God will use all of this in a way that will glorify him, further Charlie's legacy, and Charlie's up in heaven just having...
He's rooting us on. I know that.
He's so rooting us on.
Yeah.
I know.
First, Dr. G pointed out something known as a Duchenne smile. It's the kind of smile you can't fake, not convincingly anyway. It doesn't just involve your mouth. It reaches your eyes. The corners crinkle, the cheeks lift. It's what genuine happiness looks like. And that's exactly what Dr. G noticed on Erika's face, right at the moment she was talking about continuing Charlie's mission and stepping into his role. So what does that mean? It means her expression, at least in that instant, wasn't an act. Her body language suggested she was genuinely experiencing positive emotion, excitement, pride, maybe even joy. Now, take a moment to think about that. Just days after losing her husband in a devastating tragedy, she's displaying a real smile, the kind that only appears when someone truly feels good inside. That's not what most people expect to see from someone in the depths of grief. It doesn't necessarily prove anything sinister, but it does raise serious questions about why her emotional response looked so different. But Dr. G didn't stop there. She noticed something else, something subtle, but even more telling.
This is very much a real smile. The way that the eyes wrinkle, the way that the corners of the mouth go up, that all matches what would be a legitimate smile. So when people are saying, is she acting? Now right here she isn't. That seems to be actual. She actually feels good right there.
A way that always keeps Charlie first and his dreams alive and his legacy.
And then afterwards she says keeps his dreams alive. When she raised her eyebrows, she wants you to understand she is planning on keeping his dreams alive. That's something she's actually feeling as she's talking about it. Because when we raise our eyebrows, it brings attention to our face, and that's what she's focused on. You have to think so much of this is unconscious. So it's not like if she's trying to perform in some way that she could fake all of these things. What she's saying right now really does seem to be tied into how she's feeling.
First, and his dreams.
When Erika started talking about the future of the show, promising consistency, planning ahead, her entire demeanor shifted. She leaned in, eyes focused directly on the camera. Her tone changed from warm and conversational to sharp, determined, almost commanding. According to Dr. G, that change said a lot. It showed focus, commitment, and drive, the kind of body language you see in someone ready to take charge, not someone lost in grief. And that's what made this moment stand out. Because most people, just days after losing a spouse, aren't thinking about production schedules or long-term strategies. They're just trying to make it through the next hour without breaking down. But Erika? She was in planning mode, confident, composed, and very much in control. So Dr. G's conclusion matched what many viewers had already suspected. Erika's behavior didn't align with what you'd expect from someone freshly grieving. But this story doesn't end there. Because another expert, a second body language analyst, reviewed the same footage. And what they noticed took the conversation to a whole new level. They focused on one particular moment, a scene they described as tone-deaf and, frankly, deeply unsettling.
Well, we will have consistency. The members...
So we will have consistency. She really wants people to understand this. And that's what's interesting and what's different about when she's talking about this relative to some of what she's talked about before. So we're seeing a difference in body language here and what we saw at the beginning. At the beginning, she was connecting with the other people in the room, sharing stories, talking about Charlie, feeling good. Now she's talking about continuing the legacy of Turning Point USA and the Charlie Kirk Show. There is an intensity here. I think this is something she feels very strongly about. And so you're not seeing the smiles and the warmth in the same way at this point. And that's not being critical. I think that's just a difference in how intense she is and how serious she is about what it is that she's doing.
Then there's the line that made a lot of people flinch when Erika talked about tweeting as Charlie, using his account to post as if he were still here. On the surface, that can sound like a loving tribute, keeping someone's voice alive for fans, sharing memories, preserving a legacy. But the expert called it something else, a sign of a serious disconnect from what most people consider appropriate grieving. Think about it. When someone dies, especially in a violent, public way, most families want to protect the memory exactly as it was. They don't usually create new content and pretend it's coming from the deceased. They preserve old posts, share photos and memories, and let people remember what was actually said and done. Erika spoke about continuing to post as Charlie with an almost business-like enthusiasm. To some experts, that suggested she was more focused on keeping the brand active than on privately processing a catastrophic loss. The word they used was disturbing, not because posting as someone is inherently wrong, but because in context it read as prioritizing platform over person. Put bluntly, some viewers felt it looked like Charlie was being treated as an asset, a voice to be managed, rather than a husband taken from his family in a violent act. That framing made people uncomfortable. But remember, so far, these are expert observations and public impressions, not proof of intent. Professional readings of body language and tone can highlight patterns, but they don't deliver final judgments. What changed the conversation was when someone on social media broke the footage down in meticulous detail. A TikTok creator with an eye for subtle cues put together a side-by-side analysis that many found impossible to ignore. They pointed out timing, micro-expressions, and tonal shifts, moments that, when stitched together, produced a narrative far more unsettling than any single clip on its own. Once that breakdown circulated, a lot of viewers felt the emotional dissonance couldn't be chalked up to a single unusual moment. It started to look like a pattern, one that required explanation.
But I want to preface, we're not awkward. We're not like weird. We're not going to be tweeting as if it's him. That's tone deaf and really disturbing. And anyone who does that's like morbidly off. That's not what's happening. What's happening is the team is keeping this alive because we have Charlie in each and every one of us. And it is going to be continually the North Star of the conservative movement, of the voice of the youth, of the voice of the base, and that will not end.
All right, so earlier we talked about incongruity, and sometimes that means when something is incongruent with the environment, but other times it's an incongruity between someone's words and behaviors. And people who are very empathetic are extremely sensitive to that type of mismatch. They notice it pretty much immediately. This is why I believe this moment that we just looked at, and a few more like it, didn't sit well with some people.
Watch her face. Watch her body. Does this look like genuine grief? Or like someone performing grief? The internet exploded over that exact question. People started dissecting the clips, the smile, the staged moments, the tone. And once you start stringing those moments together, they don't feel random. They start to look like a pattern. At a memorial appearance, she walked out to pyrotechnics and dramatic music, fireworks for remembrance. Maybe that was the event's choice, not hers. Still, it's a bold choice, and it sets a certain tone. Then there are the crying moments. When she cries, her makeup stays perfect. No tear tracks, no smudges. She makes the motions, the face, the sounds, but the tears never come. It looks choreographed. When the music swells, she presses her face to her hands. When it eases, she looks up. To some viewers, it reads like performance art, an actor miming what grief should look like rather than feeling it. Put that beside the other clips, and the dissonance grows. In interviews, she smiles, not a polite, small smile, but a full, genuine one. She lights up talking about the future of the show, about amazing things down the pipeline. She speaks with enthusiasm, even says, I'm excited. It's weird to say excited. Days after losing a spouse in a violent, public act, most people don't sound excited about production schedules. They're trying to hold themselves together long enough to get through the next hour. Experts weighed in. One body language analyst pointed out a Duchenne smile, the kind that reaches the eyes, when she spoke about taking over the work. That suggests the feeling in that moment was authentic. Pride, pleasure, anticipation. Another expert focused on a tonal shift. When she talked about consistency and the future, she became intense, locked in, almost businesslike. That's the posture of someone taking charge, not of someone raw with fresh grief. Then there's the social media angle. She talked about posting on his accounts, keeping his voice alive. On paper, that can look like honoring a legacy. In context, some people found it unsettling, as if the platform and the brand mattered more than the man who was gone. Experts called it tone-deaf. To many viewers, it felt like treating a person as an asset. And the TikTok breakdowns made the unease contagious. A creator stitched clips together. The stage theatrics, the dry crying, the flawless makeup, the timing of gestures to music, the smile when talking about business. When played back sequentially, the sequence reads
art than it does as an expression of real grief. And when you look at that woman's face, there is not a single tear streaming down that woman's face. There is not a single smudge of makeup out of place. She's making it look like she's crying, but she's not really crying. So yeah, the whole thing is unsettling as fuck.
Less like a series of human reactions and more like choreography. But this is only half the story. While people argued over Erika's behavior, Joe Rogan and others stepped back and looked at the bigger picture. The case itself was full of confusing, contradictory details, the kind of noise that makes people stop trusting they'll ever get straight answers. You drop in bizarre theatrics, a random suspect left in the woods, an eccentric man shouting out and behaving oddly at the scene, inconsistent descriptions about the weapon and what it could even do. The effect is chaos. And chaos stops people from demanding clarity. So where does that leave us? It's a tangle of possible explanations. Maybe Erika is genuinely different, processing grief in a way that looks odd to most of us. Maybe she's in shock, or holding herself together in public while crumbling in private. Maybe she's simply excited about the work and sees it as a way to honor him. Or maybe, and this is the darker theory, her behavior is one strand of a larger, intentional confusion campaign designed to distract the public. I don't have definitive answers. Expert readings and viral clips point to an emotional dissonance that's hard to ignore, but none of it proves intent. What it does do is raise questions about authenticity, about how public grief is performed and consumed, and about how quickly a narrative can fracture when millions watch through the lens of their own biases. So here's the real takeaway. Watch carefully, compare footage, listen to measured analysis, and don't let spectacle replace skepticism. Ask for evidence, not just impressions. The story is messy, and messy stories deserve careful, patient scrutiny.